about how we operationalize that, work and learn, and ensuring that the adult student services were integrated. We're going to show very concretely how we emerged to do that. We're not experts at it, but we do have a way of showing how to begin it. So with our internship program at J Schools, we went with our biggest employer, FCC, which we'll talk to Stacy here in a moment about that. She's the HR director. And FCC, our largest employer in the manufacturing sector. It was funded through our CTE Innovation Grant. It was piloted at FCC. We had our Chamber of Commerce working with us to help mobilize employers to say, you know, this is important, let's reach out. And we created a manufacturing internship manual that kind of took down the barriers and perception about what it was to get work and learn opportunities started inside of our community. So I'll take this opportunity to introduce Stacy Paxson, the HR director at FCC, and as she comes up and talks a little bit about what it means to her and her effort there, I cannot help but note that photograph shows you about 25% of that factory is under construction. It's growing, it's adding jobs, and it's physically expanding, and that's one of the effects we're certainly hoping to support. Stacy.
Thank you, Jeremy. So as Jeremy said, I am with FCC Indiana, and we are very happy to be part of the J community. And currently we employ about 760 associates, and we are one of the larger employers there in our community. And probably many of you drive vehicles that have our parts in those. We supply clutches, automatic clutches for Honda, Chrysler, ZF, and soon to be Toyota. So like I said, many of you probably have your product in your vehicles today. So for us, we were very excited about the potential for the students of our community. We were very excited about the potential for ourselves and what this could mean to our sustainability of our company, and also for the community and helping the community. So again, as I said, this was all about sustainability for us. As many of you that are in businesses know, it's very hard to find skilled employees these days, and we find it very difficult. And so that's what we were looking for, that's what we were searching for. How can we contribute and participate? And then J Manufacturing and that idea came about. So we must continue as a business to thrive, and we want to continue to employ 760 associates or more. And so again, for us, it was about those individuals and how do we keep going for them and for our community. So we already had an extensive training program, and we adopted that and kind of molded it into what would work well with the students and their schedules. And they were trained in areas of manufacturing and also in quality and in our maintenance areas. Because again, many of you know it's very hard to find a good maintenance associate these days. So with that training program, it introduced those students to a lot of different areas for them to explore for career opportunities in the future. And so we would pay these students while they would work, and so they would be working and training at the same time. And then we also then continued, if they would finish the program, would get an additional compensation incentive at the end of that. So again, we were very excited about that, and we had one student that came through the program with much potential, Cameron Kunkel, and so we're very happy now that he is part of our team and part of our family at FCC.
Thank you, Stacy. Just having a great lead partner is really important to get things started. Some of you here may have already been years down the road in your programs, but for us it was reinvigorating this notion. I want to illustrate too, not only FCC, which was our best partner, we had a dozen manufacturers in our collaboration. And when we took our curriculum through Connexus to them, we said, tell us if this is going to meet the bill. So the tail did not wag the dog in our particular context. We went straight to the source and said, is this the work that you wish us to engage in to make sure we're getting there? And they endorsed that effort. And when I saw the training plan that Stacy put together, and its focus on production and safety and quality and industrial maintenance, it started to line up with our curriculum. So when kids like Cameron go through a work and learn experience, it activates that prior knowledge in their classroom. Not to mention when Seth is working in there to try to get kids engaged and get them excited about this, when he says it or I says it, kids kind of like look at you a little bit. We're school people, right? But when they see an employer start to talk about these things and they get out and see it for themselves, it sort of takes on a whole new importance for them. And I will tell you at FCC, I don't know if she mentioned this, they paid that student intern. Now that word's getting out amongst our kids. So now I'm seeing it's starting to influence the kids that are starting to sign up for our programs if that's possible. Look for that internship, paid internship possibility. I know Connexus will probably talk about some opportunities they're providing schools to support that notion. But that's starting to make a difference as well, and I'm glad that they were willing to commit resources on their own to make that real. I'll go ahead and show you a little bit about some of the lessons learned. In that left picture, that's the cover sheet of our manual. We were influenced heavily by the work of Connexus in this effort, so we were glad to see that example. I encourage you to look at the document. When the Lieutenant Governor talked about sort of artificial barriers that some employers have to putting kids under 18 in an intern setting, that their work influenced ours in being able to reduce those barriers. But find a good base plan, and that's a good one, and there are others. Share examples of the employer that you're working with in the lead, and then use that example to open doors to other employers. So it's pretty quick to get attention amongst other employers when they say, yeah, FCC's doing this, doing it well. And I hope it engenders a spirit of competition amongst them, because we are going to offer up some of the best kids that are probably going to stay in our county and get them into positions that are of high demand in industrial maintenance. So now everyone's scratching their heads saying, this is happening at FCC and we need to get involved so that we can get access to some pretty great young people. So we leverage that relationship. And the kind of training that she's put together and her team at FCC has really shown what right looks like. So now we're doing it right in a small scale so we can start to replicate that. Rather than going too fast, too large, and having a sort of a thin layer of quality, we're getting it right in a small setting first. Find a good partner. For us, we found it, and then use that to scale up. We're also partnering with Work One in this initiative. We'll show more on that later. Relentless communication. So email is not going to cut it. When you're talking to busy people and you're trying to create relationships, we beat the pavement. We walked in the door. And then we used FCC and our partners in Chamber of Commerce and Work One to help us open that door. But you can't let sort of the unanswered email be, well, we contacted them and they're not. No, we're going to go and see them. We're going to make this happen. And then someone needs to be in charge. So in our context, we use some of our CTE basic grant funds that come through our school for offering CTE programs, and we use that to hire Margaret Ralph, who's a great colleague of mine for now 20 years, who's a retared teacher. She's a CTE teacher, and she's our intern coordinator. So she's got some time to devote. She can't get away from the kids entirely in retirement. So it doesn't cost us a lot, but we make sure we compensate her for her efforts, and that's really helped us. So you got to have someone running herd on that, and she does an awfully good job keeping employers engaged and getting out there. And then our teacher, Seth Swallow, is also very good. You can't bypass this guy. I mean, he's the center of gravity in getting this work. Every one of us in the school business knows that teacher makes a difference in these programs. They thrive or they perish based on the quality of that teacher and their interactions. And he stays very engaged with employers, making sure that he's attuned to what's needed in that classroom and that they understand what we offer and what we don't. I mean, we're not necessarily going to offer a skilled trades guy that's just absolutely superb. These are 17-year-old kids. But he can offer them a very trainable kid that has a working knowledge and is literate in the major functions of manufacturing in our context. So Seth, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience in the internship and work and learn program?
Yeah, as Jeremy said, I am the classroom teacher. It's kind of always a funny story. I always like to brag a little bit that I'm also an ag teacher too. So a lot of what I've brought over is lessons learned from agriculture and the FFA. So that helps on the soft skill side. But I'd also like to thank Claudia with Connexus. The program they've put together is fantastic. And it has really enabled us to really work through and engage with the students and teach a lot of things that isn't possible for me to be able to teach all that from my own memory bank. It's just not there. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. As we work through, we're always learning, staying fluid, and trying to understand what the baseline needs are. because one of the big things I think everyone in this room probably understands is education and industry don't always merge. There's been a divergence some time ago, and that is an issue that I struggle with sometimes because as Stacy and I will attest, when we try to work together, her schedule and my schedule just aren't the same. So it's making those things work. And as the program grows, I'm getting more input and help from the employers in the area. Some are a little slower. Others are really seeing this value. And with Cameron, he was just basically the cherry on top of everything to really show that it's going to work. I remember early on when Jeremy and I had a conversation about the whole program starting about 2 years ago, we discussed how it's not about usual lip service that education likes to give industry. And I believe that was a huge barrier within the industry world. They said, well, education always says they're going to do this, but they don't. And so we said, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And there he sits. So we're doing it. But there's still lots of different things that we're trying to learn, and on my perspective, things I'm trying to work with and cooperate on the industry side. Fortunately, my background's not 100% education. I come out of industry. I spent my first 10 years out of college there. So I have a different perspective than some of my colleagues in education. But that's been helpful. But yet it's that blending and that merging that we've had to pull together there that is truly working. And again, we're relying on great groups such as Connexus to really help streamline and stay in tune with the needs that are out there. So we're excited. We're keeping moving forward. We're always available if there's questions, and we're always trying to learn from others too. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Seth. And you definitely illustrated a good point about transparency in our work. It's not about a photo op and cut a ribbon and then go back to business as usual. We work. It's a real team effort, and that's I think the physical example and the stories you hear today represent that. And it's about shared accountability. And in our community, we're starting to see our industry partners, put their money where their mouth is, and that's good. And we're doing the same. So we've got that original CTE grant had a private match. I thought that was wonderful because it immediately brought credibility that if we're seeking these resources to affect a change, let's begin with those who will be the ultimate customer of that, our employers, and seeing if they see value in it in the first instance. So we saw Tyson Foods in Portland give a $10,000 hydraulic piece of training equipment to us. We saw FCC offer up $5,000 just to get us going. FCC also, I don't know if you pointed this out, they actually create a little scholarship for the kid. So if they successfully get through the internship, that commits to their continuing education. So we started to see our employers actually stand up and do some of this as well, and that speaks to the kid. So the MAP, okay, so we had one, good partner. Two, in our we have a TLS by Design, which is a startup manufacturer of furniture in our community, took an intern. So next year we've already got kids placed in Folenkamp Machine, Littler Dye in Albany, which is actually outside of our county. So the little dots on the map are going to start to grow because we have at least been able to see it work successfully in the first instance. Another little tip, practical one, bring the parents into this. We took Cameron's mom and dad and the other young man who was involved in our internship and took their parents out to the factory. Because mom and dad need to be comfortable that's a safe place to do business. And if they don't know or haven't, a lot of folks don't understand modern manufacturing today, it's clean, it's safe. Obviously, there are very strict protocols and procedures to achieve that. And that's our number one priority is the safety. So getting mom and dad to come in and actually look at the environment the student's going to work in was worthwhile for us to do. And I would pass that on as a particular technique. This little text you see up here, I don't know who wrote it. And if it's someone in DWD, well, then congratulations to you. Or if you lifted it off of something, that's okay too, because we're teachers and we steal all the time. But we saw this on the application for the CTE Innovative Curriculum Grant. And it's this notion that new ideas emerge from exploring connections and making change in meaningful ways. It's not necessarily creating a new widget, but it's getting the right people aligned across the right work. And then, lo and behold, you find new opportunities to jump over and connect to something else you had no idea you would necessarily be connecting to. And then getting those silos to be integrated across those very important systems that the Lieutenant Governor spoke to, the amount of resources and the amount of programs, and then getting that done in a very local context on the ground. This is innovative. You might say the elements themselves are not, but getting them to function together is no small task. And I think I appreciated the notion of that was behind that sentence, and that's really been the function of our early work, and it is very early work. Let me give a couple of examples of what I mean by that. So what you see there is little kids in our elementary schools who are dressing up as what they want to be when they grow up. And we're looking at Cameron when he's 5 years old. I probably should have got that picture from Mom today. And we're saying, how do we start that conversation early? Now remember the pillars we talked about that are aligned to the Indiana Career Council plan. If we're going to get to 60% of Hoosiers with a post-credential, then we need to start that conversation a lot early. So in Jay County, through the Works Council, I might add, identified an emerging model in Wabash County, and we were accepting it as a pilot community to that called Indiana Promise. So in Jay County, you have the Jay County Promise. And in our county, only 7% of our kids had a college 529 account. Now in Indiana, we have the most generous tax credit available in any state in the union with 20% tax credit. Put 5,000 in, get 1,000 back, roll it right back into the 529 account. Only 7% of our kids had that, and that's pretty typical in a lot of communities. Now, you remember earlier we said we only had 48% of our kids going on to college of any kind. So we decided to start early and engender this notion in that little child's heart that I am a kid who can go to college someday. So we went about this effort of setting a goal of getting 70% of our kids a college 529 account. Remember when only 7% did. So after 3 months worth of work, we have 71% of our kids K through 3 with a college 529 account. Now we also said, how can we get parents to buy into that? So we gave every child a piggy bank. So we export a lot of pork in Jay County, honestly do, like a lot of rural communities. But you're also going to see this kind of pig running around elementary schools in Jay County. And we said, feed your pig, $25. If you put $25 in your pig, get mom and dad to do it, get aunts and uncles, your neighbors, grandparents, and you bring it to school, we're going to double that money. We're going to put $50 in that pig. So our Portland Foundation, Indiana's second oldest community foundation, put in the first $25 for any parent who signed up as an incentive. Kids put in $25 through their support, their home, their family. The community raised $100,000 to be able to put in that additional $50. So research has shown that kids with a college savings account are 4 times more likely to go to college. So we're very pleased with the early results of that. So across the dinner tables in the homes in our community, there's this conversation going on about college. And we really feel like that starts at very early, setting an expectation and defined locally as not necessarily a 4-year degree. So we talked to our kids, took them to Taylor University, showed them what a college looked like, and we said, you know, Ivy Tech, come on up here and talk about what you do with your hands. We're trying to talk to kids here. And we said, you know, going to college is not necessarily the right for everybody, but you got to go somewhere to get the skills to be get a good quality job, a good job, being that chef or that programmer of a computer or that person working on a robot, working with your hands. And in a blue-collar community, there were a lot of parents. There were some parents in that little group at Taylor who I could see their heads nod. I mean, it valued what they do too, but recognized that we have more work to do. So the Feed the Pig worked, and we appreciate being connected to that pilot through the Indiana Works Council. Competitive robotics, I talked about that earlier. That's, you know, we got our manufacturers in and said, we got 100 kids competing nationally in robotics. Google Jay County and robotics and tell me if we haven't at least got something working there for kids. So how do you get that to more of an industrial robotics context? We asked our employers, what operating systems do you use most in robotics? And they told us FANUC. So we looked at different robots. So rather than just going out and spending money on a robot, right, we actually went to the employer first and said, what's the most likely robot a kid's going to see working in your firms? FANUC has 60% of the market, and in a very automotive-centric state, that was the big platform. Kids earn a certification through FANUC out of that, and we see that energy and interest around competitive robotics, starting in our middle school, start to narrowly define itself along industrial applications. So a kid wants to be an engineer at Purdue, that's great, you can do that. You can also get a leg up when you apply and you walk out of our program with an actual FANUC certification. Wouldn't have been possible without the support of our curriculum grant. One of the first high schools to offer robotics for credit. Not the only one, but one of the first. We're proud of it. Early college and careers, you're going to hear a lot about that. And raise your hand if you've heard about all this thing about teachers losing the ability to have credentials to do dual credit. I'm glad you've heard about it because it is a challenge, and I'm hoping that as a state we have a sort of a collaborative answer to those challenges. But in this particular picture, you see a kid coming into our high school from college, graduated from us last year, and on the computer they're using Skype to actually be in the college dorm of one of our other graduates, her actual college dorm mate. So this is our early college group of kids, seeing what college looks like. When we talk about early college as a model in Jay County, we are very intentional in saying it's early college, early career. So not just the general core transfer certificate and the 2-year associates. We looked at all of our pathways and we said how many dual credits can we get in that pathway, and then made it more transparent for the counselor and parent and kid, and we actually physically put on the website, here is the 1-year credential at Ivy Tech or Vincennes University that you would line up with, so that the kid only sees the dual credit irrespective of a pattern or a pathway. Now we can say we can get you 15 of 30, or in some pathways 9 of 30. But that 1-year technical credential became one of our real baselines about what we mean by early college and career. Kid still needs that math. Kid still needs the English dual credit. And we provide that, but the dual credits in our CTE pathways was really sort of the focus of our early college program. And the numbers are growing. Now we're concerned about the sustainability of that with some of the credentialing challenges that weren't started in our state. And I'm not going to suggest that they're not necessarily all bad. Quality is important, standards are important, but we're going to think differently, I think, about how we're going to tackle that challenge. But we're seeing huge growth in our early college and early career program, and it's aligned to credentials. We talked about those columns a moment ago, but we're very CTE oriented in how we're counseling students about those pathways, because it's been very difficult to connect that to our community college system unless you're really intentional about doing it. We're fortunate in Jay County to have the Jay County John Jay Center for Learning. It's a fine facility, downtown Portland, very small community, local funds supporting this. And we basically house Ivy Tech, Vincennes, Indiana Wesleyan footprints in that particular facility. And we're doing more with trying to train incumbent workers. In our context, Work One is in that building with John Jay. We have an annex for our high school in there. So you can see physically we've started to integrate those adult student systems we spoke about. So in that picture in the bottom, you'll see an Ivy Tech counselor, you'll see a Jay County High School counselor, and you'll see a John Jay Center counselor. Taking 30 or 40 kids who really didn't have a plan that senior year. We've done all we could to get them oriented. We got them down that room and said, we're going to do the first year here. That's our slogan, first year here at John Jay, getting Ivy Tech instruction in our community college system. Work One's right down the hallway so that there's a handoff between our high school and our community college system and the workforce development system for probably 30 or 40 kids who probably need it the most. And we're seeing enrollments there from last fall at 217 enrollments to this year at 291. So this is a very small rural community in Indiana who's really fighting hard to ensure that we are breaking down those silos and integrating those services. That's just an example. Okay, so our efforts are aligned to that vision, right, that we spoke about momentarily ago, of economic strength, strong middle class, and supporting not only workforce development but economic development. These are all connected. So our seniors this year took the WorkKeys assessment, every one of them. And you can see the counties up there that are just now emerging as what they call work-ready communities. So this is an initiative by Workforce Development linked to economic development, and the schools are now involved in that. So every kid took it, and 71% of our kids, our seniors, scored at a silver or gold level certificate on that. So now our counselors, we're very intentional about it. It's hard work. Got to get it in front of them and say, guess what? You see these WorkKeys tests? Here's the 6 biggest employers in Jay County, and this is how these WorkKeys assessments mean. This is the HR decisions for this. So when we counsel our seniors, now 48% of them aren't even going to college, so guess what? A lot of them are staying here. then this is what the Work Keys means for you. And we hope that can help strengthen the hand of our economic development coordinator in our county to show the efforts we've made to maintain a strong workforce. So kids should not take tests without understanding how those results mean, that they're connected to something. And so when we have folks like Stacy saying this is important, then it helps a kid understand this is my Work Key scores, these are the jobs I'm suited for. Not only just in us, but we looked at the 50 hot jobs in Indiana. And Work One gave us, Melissa Slimming here from Region 6 gave us a list of those jobs and the relevant Work Key score. So now we're making a very intentional counseling product, and that was just about a month ago that we started taking the Work Keys assessment. Another integration of adult students. So we have 29 kids graduating early, okay? A lot of them are going straight into the workforce. We get them up to John Jay, you saw that, we get them in the Work One system, but soft skills, the employability skills is a really big challenge. I've heard educators say that's mom and dad's responsibility. And I can assure you that if mom and dad does it, it'll never be an issue. And when the family's strong and can model that and inculcate that in the child, all of our jobs are easier. But they say it's not my responsibility. I've heard that said sometimes. I said, no, it's not, but it's our opportunity. Because it's not going to fix themselves unless we can interject an opportunity to model work skills and soft skills. So the Work One program, the Golden Ticket, you may have heard of this. It's 32 hours of soft skill instruction over 4 8-hour blocks. And we take Margaret and we use her to be able to teach those kids that curriculum. If they earn that certificate, we get the employers to say that means something to me in Jay County. So we're getting an MOU signed with all our employers to say, we're going to route these kids through that Golden Ticket experience. If it means something to you, then give them a top-of-the-stack interview. Let us know how to tell our kids that matters by showing them that they'll get a chance to go into an interview setting first with some real certifications. Maybe